Okay, today we're talking about Bionaphtha. It's going to be a little different than usual. And the beginning part of it, I hope, was not going to scare you. It's a little technical and ingredients and whatever, things like that, like serious stuff. As much as you have to understand. But if not, hold on for the second part, which will be more your style. And hopefully we're going to finish in time. We'll see what happens.
In Spanish, naphtha is the gas in the car. It's called naphtha.
That's
That's
what we're talking about. Yeah, that's what we're...
Not PH.
Yeah, that's the English American spelling. Okay, yes. Okay, so let's give you a drop of information, okay, which is like this. You have a carbon molecule can attach to any carbon molecule can attach to 4 different things. Okay, so you have a carbon chain, means there's a lot of carbons all attached to each other. So each connection is to one carbon next to it. And then it has 3 other connections that it could do. So one is to the carbon on the other side. And then there's hydrogens and oxygens and other things that it could be connected to. Okay? Once in a while, there's a double bond. Okay? That means I'm using 2 connections to go to the next carbon. So I only have 2 spares. So I could have, let's say, to a hydrogen on one side and then to another carbon on the other side. I have a double bond, and that makes a difference to the molecule that it has this double bond. A lot of the chemicals that get used in food are made of exactly these kind of carbon chains. When you hear of alcohols and fatty acids and esters, all those are carbon chains with different mixes and matches of how many double bonds, how many carbons there are, how many hydrogens and oxygens there are. All those mixes give it these different characters. Okay. Now there's something else. That's what you're used to, like in food items. Okay, and lots of the chemicals. But there's something called a hydrocarbon. Okay, a hydrocarbon is made of just hydrogen carbon, no oxygen, no anything else in there. It's just hydrogen carbon. Okay, you may have heard the term they talk about like global warming, hydrocarbons. Okay, it's just hydrogen carbon, and there's a source for that, and that is petroleum. Okay, petroleum. That's not going to work. I will do it this way. Petroleum is hydrocarbon. Okay, it's just hydrogen and carbon. That's all it is. Well, basically. There's some impurities, but basically hydrogen carbon, and the parts of petroleum has all these different, what they call fractions, depending on how long the chains of carbons are. So it's just carbons with hydrogens attached to them, that's all it is. Okay, and as you could see there, depending on the very short chains, is natural gas. That literally, it's a gas naturally. And as you get more and more carbons, it has different functions. So I forgot which one of these is used for jet fuel, and gasoline is for cars, and I don't remember which one they fit into there, but depending on the chain, they have different functions and different possibilities, and then you get to the end, and they're very thick, even heavier stuff with longer chains. Okay.
Natural gas is a boiling point of less than 30?
Yeah, it's a gas. It's a gas. That's why it's not a liquid. It boiled, it turned into a vapor at room temperature. It's a liquid. It's a vapor.
Oh, you're saying
not a flashpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we are going to focus on is naphtha. Okay, that's the one towards the middle there. Okay, and naphtha, these companies will take naphtha and they break apart and reconstruct and do all kinds of things with naphtha to make it into different kinds of molecules. Particularly, I'm running ahead of my screens. Okay, keep you busy on the screens. Okay. A drop of thing. This is not so negated today, but negated in general, and I'll keep using these terms. When you name a molecule in science, in chemistry, they're very specific with how they name things. So depending on how many carbons, it has to do with the name. So when there's one carbon, it's called like methanol. Like I have some examples there. Like methyl chloride. Those are things that are made from methanol. The meth part of it means there's one carbon only in this item. So let's say in methanol, there's one carbon, and there's an attachment to it that has a certain structure called an alcohol. That's methanol. Okay, and 2 of them is like ethanol, you know that. But other things like there's ethylpyrazine. 3 is propanol, so like propylene glycol. We'll get to what all the rest of that means maybe, but propyl means that it's 3 carbons, and 4 is butyl, and then it keeps on going. But this is for what we need for our purpose, what we need. Okay,
that has nothing to do with what it is. It just means how many carbons there are.
Well, that has very much to do with what it is.
The prefix, but I'm saying the prefix is
it's not di-tri. We used the 3 tri, doing di.
Don't seem to be right with numbers.
The same idea, though.
They use di and tri for other things. Like diethyl chloride means there's 2 ethyls and attached to a
So why
chlorine.
does F2 and prop 3 why is it?
That's how many carbons are. This is just how
Why
many.
is-
Why that name?
Why they make it then?
Shach to the number.
This
Yeah.
I don't know. This I don't know. Who this I can't tell you.
The other ones, it comes from the Greek for the number. So
This
the,
is all that. Okay, so I'm asking. Okay, I'll go for it. Okay, now, but what an important thing that they make when they break apart the naphtha and they reconstruct it, they heat it, and they all kinds of things that are going on to it, which we're not going to talk about. What they do to it, all kinds of complicated stuff. There's two main things. There's really four things, but there's two main things that they make, and one is called ethylene, and one is called propylene. Okay. Ethylene, so ethyl means that there's two carbons. As you can see, there's two carbons in that molecule. There's two C's for carbon. All the extra spaces are held by hydrogen because this is a hydrocarbon. It's just hydrogen carbon. That's all there is. And the ene at the end means that there's a double bond. There's at least one double bond in here. So there's a double bond. You can see that between the two carbons. The picture's supposed to show a double bond between them. And the propylene has three carbons and it has one double bond in it also. And that gives it very unusual properties. And those are the main things that they make out of petroleum. And then from there, literally, it turns into the oil, petroleum turns into these four items. Naphtha is the one mainly that we're caring about today, which turns into these things: ethylene, propylene, the butyl, and the methyl. Okay, the four streams that it makes out of it. Okay, depending on how many carbons there are, and the ene means that there's a double bond to it. Okay. Then from that, it turns into all kinds of other stuff, which are used in all kinds of other things also. Okay. I know you can't read that. Okay, you're not supposed to. It's just supposed to scare you, just so that you realize all kinds of things that turn out from petroleum. Okay, you started with petroleum, and all these kind of chemicals and things that are used can be used. Almost everything, if you looked at the little words, has not for food use. Okay, and almost everything that you see here is almost everything. That's why I'm talking to you about it. If it was just for plastics or just off the gas station, we wouldn't care about it. Okay, so I broke down for you the whoops, sorry, back up. Okay, the ethylene path of that, just so you could see it in bigger words. Okay, so the ethylene turns into these things. You see what's going on here. It's like you see over there polyester. Okay, and you see styrene. These are all things that are non-edibles. Okay, ethylene glycol. All these kind of ethylene. That's what's called antifreeze. Okay, all kinds of stuff over here that's not edible. And then we go up a little further. It goes further. Whoa, there's ethyl alcohol. Okay, the ethylene, which has a double bond, turns into ethyl alcohol, just one bond between them. And we use that in food items.
All those examples are not foods.
What do you think?
Synthetic solvents.
Most of them are, but you see glacial acetic acid on the right side. Okay, on the right side you see acetic acid. That's glacial acetic acid. People use that for that. Acetaldehyde people use ethyl alcohol. So again, I'm not telling you just because I could find you an occasional one that has food use. And most of the things, even these are even the ones that look like food, like ethyl alcohol, are not for food use.
Right, none of those examples are.
I didn't. Okay, but ethyl alcohol is used. Ethyl alcohol made from petroleum is used in making food items, but derech kal it's not. But by no means is that the usual. The usual is look at this kind of stuff that they make out of it. Okay, adhesives and solar panels and automotive things, all kinds of things that have nothing to do with with food items. Okay, so we're really never going to finish it. Okay, I'm sorry. It's going to definitely go over time. I'm sorry about that. Okay, so but the short version of what I just said was we take petroleum and we end up with ethylene and propylene. Those are the big things that we make out of them, and from that comes all kinds of other things that come out. Okay, wonderful. That's petroleum. And before I continue, the reason why all these petroleum type products don't need hashgacha, they're all group ones, is because they're made from petroleum. They're made in companies that all they do is make petroleum. That's all they do. There's no issues. There's no Kashrus issues that could be there. There's no ingredients. Everything is very straightforward. So there's lots and lots of things that are group one that don't need hashgacha because by looking at the molecule, you say, I know that molecule comes from petroleum. You can tell by the structure of the molecule, this thing obviously came from petroleum, and therefore it doesn't need hashgacha. Okay, that's a big class of things that don't need hashgacha are these petroleum-based products. That was all good until recently. Okay, and that is that companies, there's a lot of push for environmental reasons and things like that for people to use renewable fuels instead of using petroleum, which is considered to not be renewable. You can't get more of it. We should make all kinds of things out of renewable sources. So some of that means like solar panels and wind and what are they called? windmills, okay, and there's a new one now that you could do from waves in the ocean, okay. All that is renewable stuff, wonderful. But our concern is they also want to use oils and fats, okay, either waste leftover oils like from production or from used cooking oil, which is treif, of course, and animal fat, which of course is treif also, okay. And they want to find ways to use that use that instead of petroleum, okay. And what they do is like this. So this picture it's a rough picture of it, but what you're seeing in the picture is all the fats and oils. Their big problem that they have is that they have other things besides for hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, you got to get rid of. Hydrogen and carbon. You got to get rid of those other stuff. So all kinds of stuff happen. Not important to us how that happens, but they manage through all kinds of processes to get those things apart and then bring it to the point that it becomes naphtha. Okay, they get to that point that they can reconstruct chazer schmaltz and turn it into naphtha. Okay, turn it into what we saw a few screens ago from petroleum, which is a naphtha. It's an oil. It's whatever level of oil it is of fuel that it is. They could turn. So now one thing you can make straight out of that is biodiesel. Okay, you can make it mamish into naphtha and diesel. It's almost the same thing. You can make it right into biodiesel. But you could also turn it into naphtha, which that company who made the naphtha could sell to companies that usually work with petroleum, and they can now use it like regular naphtha. They make most of their naphtha out of petroleum. They could buy naphtha from this other guy, which is made out of animal fat. Okay, so and they call that bionaphtha. It's naphtha made out of a biological source. Okay, so the if we just stop for a second, that's our shiloh. That's our issue we have to deal with. This bionaphtha is being made from animal fat and from used cooking oil, and some oils that are kosher, like leftover soybean oil, but also lots of treif things. So that if that stuff turns into our ethylene, that turns into our glacial acetic acid, so those glacial acetic acid now all of a sudden become kosher sensitive because of this. Okay, that's the question we have to deal with. That took me a long time to get here. Okay, so now before I tell you that stardom why it should be mutter, why it should be okay, is I have to tell you two legal fictions. Okay, the legal fictions go like this: the government and people want everybody else to use these renewable fuels, but the things that you can make out of them, lav dafka, do people want to use? So what they do is like this: they decided that the goal is there should be more renewable fuels, but if we could, but they have two ways of legal fiction. No, legal fictions. Okay, the first is called literally legal fiction. The first is called mass balance transfer, and that means is if I make something out of a renewable fuel, I make biodiesel out of a renewable fuel. Nobody wants biodiesel. There's nobody out there who's saying, please, I want to fill up my car with biodiesel. Okay, truck drivers are not saying, please give me biodiesel for my car. Nobody wants to buy that. But the people who want to buy foods that are made from renewable sources, so what they do is like this. The person makes biodiesel. That's easier to make out of this stuff. He makes biodiesel out of it. He's now made something out of a renewable source. He can now say, I also make ethylene out of petroleum. I'm going to transfer the right that I made renewable things to the ethylene. I made it completely out of petroleum. I take the rights that I have to claim I created 100 units of renewable something. I could transfer that to my ethylene, and I say the ethylene is renewable. So the guy getting the biodiesel, who's getting real stuff that's made from animal fat, he thinks he's getting petroleum. And the guy who's getting ethylene, who he thinks he's getting renewable, he's only getting legally he's getting renewable, but he didn't get renewable. He got the stuff made of petroleum. What did you say?
Social credits.
Credit. It's a credit, right? Exactly. But the government saying, but the mice is going to be more renewable use because if we get this guy who wants to buy his plastic soda bottle made out of renewable items, he would pay for that. He would pay extra for that. He would encourage that, and then he actually gets made of petroleum. But in the end, it causes more to be done. And there's a truck driver who's driving diesel who's made out of it. Okay, that's one thing. There's one legal fiction. The other one is there's something called the ethylene pipeline, and that is the companies who make these items. Think about where they're located. Okay, they're located at the places where the petroleum is. Okay, think Texas. Okay, think Louisiana. Okay, they're making places where the petroleum is. Those people they create ethylene. That's a big item that they're making. Okay? That's not me. Okay, they take the ethylene. They have this ethylene, but they want to now use the ethylene to create something else. Okay, they want to make something out of that thing. What they do is that doesn't have to be made where they are. They ship it. There's an ethylene pipeline, and the pipeline goes from the place where all the ethylene people are to places where they might want to use it. And the way rules are like this: if I put in 1,000 units of ethylene into the pipeline, then I can take out 1,000 units of ethylene on the other end of the pipeline, someplace else. I can take one of the places out. And now all ethylene is the same, so it doesn't make. I don't get what I put in, but I put in 1,000. I'm entitled to take out 1,000. You put in 500. You can take out 500. Okay, so everybody, whatever you put in, you're entitled. You pay into the system, and you can take out of the system. But what I put in is not what I take out. I put it into the pipeline. It's all being pumped up from Louisiana to New Jersey, let's say, to wherever it's going. And when I'm in New Jersey, I'm entitled to pull out some of it out of it. But what I pull out is not what I put in. Not by no means is it what I put into it. Everyone just gets what they want to. So that means is the person who's getting and if I put in renewable, I'm allowed to pull out renewable also. How come that I didn't pull out what I actually put into there? So that means is so what's going on here, you realize, is that if we decide that Bionaphtha is not kosher because it comes from animal fat, then not only is the Bionaphtha not kosher, but all of it is not kosher because we have no idea which ethylene you got. The fact that you bought from a guy who sells you, I'm selling you petroleum-based ethylene. Well, Dafka, is that what you're getting? You might get the guy from the.
If it's pumped through the pipeline.
Of course it's pumped through the pipeline. No one's in Louisiana doing something out of things. Everything's being pumped in pipelines from here to there. So, or through mass transfer credits. So even if we decide that the Bionaphtha is not kosher, then all the petroleum products are now suspect. Because they're all mixed and matched. The fact that we call it Bionaphtha or we call it not has nothing to do with the truth. Okay, what you're actually getting has nothing to do with what the claim is. It's legally considered to be Bionaphtha. Legally
it's
considered renewable.
impossible to claim it. It's all mixed together.
It's all mixed together.
It's not just it's a taruvus. It's all mixed.
It's
So
not
I don't care what they
separate.
claim. They don't claim it's mixed.
It's
Right.
not
So the
sacred.
point,
It's not-
right. So the point is, if you couldn't say, oh no, we'll only take petroleum based. Because
can't.
right, because the person who tells you, who with all seriousness tells you, I'm telling you petroleum based, and from legally he's correct, but he's telling you has nothing to do with the truth.
It's
It's
not
not
whatever the
tanker.
percentage is.
It's not like tanker trucks.
No, this doesn't
Right.
go like
this
that.
is
Correct.
that's the problem.
Yes,
it's not
correct.
like tanker trucks.
Correct. Okay. So that's our issue. The big issue is the Bionaphtha treif. And if it is treif, then that branches into the fact that, wait a second, we would have no way to keep an eye on this thing. What would we do to let us know how would we even find the kosher stuff versus the non-kosher?
Do you know numbers? Like what percentage of?
Yeah, right. I'm sure it's a mute to the mute.
It's not muted to mute. No. It's a meat now. But it's rising because there's push for people, government incentives and consumer pushing for people to have this bio stuff. And there's more and more of it.
So
Yeah,
approximately
I don't know what the number is. No, I don't know what the number is. I'm sorry, but it's building up. Okay, again, it by no means is it what's going on, but there's a lot. It's coming. Okay, we had every one of the hashkach, every one of the large agencies has dealt with it, including us, which is companies of ours who make product who said is we want to start using Bionaphtha, that we want to start using this stuff. We want to say ethylene made from Bionaphtha. We want to use it. Is that okay with you, Rabbi? Okay, some of them told us, and some of them didn't tell us, but
To make what?
to make cis-3-hexanol, okay? They can make from ethylene, okay? It's making its way from here to here. And we say, yeah, no, we're giving hashkacha to it, or we're taking it as group one. But the group one ones we don't know. But the ones we're giving hashkacha to are turning to us and saying, I'm about to buy ethylene made from animal products or from things like that. Is that okay with you? Okay, some of them are telling us, and some of them are not. But all the larger hashkachas have had people come to them and say to them, Rabbi, we want to use it. Is that okay with you?
And it just means that they have credits to claim that. That's all it really means anyway.
Right. They may not know. The people who are talking to us may not realize what's going on in the background.
I think the Bionaphtha company has the right to say it's Bionaphtha.
Right. They're buying ethylene. They're even buying ethylene. They're like many steps down the road. They're buying ethylene from a guy who says, I'm making it from these kind of sources. Whether that's
He has the
the
right
truth
to
or
say
not-
that because he has a credit.
Right. Whether it's truth or not. Again, I know that these two things, the mass transfer and the pipelines, is what goes on in America. In other countries, there might be other legal fictions. We have no idea what other shtick there
So
is.
the companies that are not buying it because they never expressed interest, they don't want to call it that. It could also be buying from the same thing.
100%. Right. That's what I'm saying. Even the icker issue is a treif, and if it's treif, then even the people who don't think they're getting it are
So
also
why is
getting
it
it.
coming up from those companies that are telling us they're using it in the bio? It's relevant to anyone using it.
Right. That's us saying it's relevant to you other people. They don't know that it's relevant. The people are telling us are like alerted us to this idea that this is going on and said this, we want to start using this stuff, is that okay? Alerted us, then when you dig deeper, you found that, hey, it's not even just them, it's everybody's got it. Okay, it's all over the place. Okay. Okay, so that was all. I know this is not funny, an introduction. Let's just help you understand the issue that's going on here. No way am I going to finish. Okay, no way I'm going to finish on time.
Yeah, I'm sure it's obvious.
Okay, so let's talk about it. Okay, so there's going to be, I'm going to have two major paths as to explain to you why it's okay. Okay, so the first group of issues is there's a machlokes that you know about whether something is Nishtaneh. Okay, whenever something changes from one form to another, does that make the din change about it? And that's a machlokes. It's brought in our Chaim by in the brachas of when you talk about what bracha you make on the smell of different things. So there's a thing called musk. Musk is made from a musk deer. It's a kosher deer, and it has this gland that makes this thing that has this good aroma to it. And that brings down the machlokes Rishonim about what happens if you want to eat this stuff. If you want to use it as to flavor your food instead of just to give it a good smell. So the Ramah says that it's asur. He says it comes from blood. I don't know how they know that, but it comes from blood. And since it comes from blood, blood is asur. It's a kosher animal, but it comes from blood. It comes from blood, therefore it's asur. And Rabbeinu Yonah says that no, it was blood. Blood is blood. The fact that it looks like something different now, it has this pleasant smell to it, doesn't make a difference. And all the later points can talk about it, whether it should be who they hold like. And the Pri Megadim, most people follow along. Mishmur brings this. The Pri Megadim says, listen here, it's a machlokes, unresolved machlokes. So if it's a shayla with the raisa, you should be machmer. If it's a shayla with the rabbanon, you should be mekel. Okay, so depends.
Nobody asks because Yitzim and Achai.
What do you say?
Nobody says also because Yitzim and Achai.
I don't remember the answer to that question. I believe that that's totally on whether there is there an issur yotze on kosher animals in the first place. Okay, but put that on the side. Okay, I don't remember the answer to that question. Okay,
is it chai when they get it?
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so if we were to just stop over here, we say, well, if there's machlokes, Pri Megadim says we should be machmer by deraisas. Okay, animal fat is also a deraisa. So then if we're going to be machmer for deraisas, then we'd have to be machmer on this thing. Okay, it's a machlokes here whether it's Nishtaneh. It's very different. Animal fat or used cooking oil and now gasoline or whatever we turned it into, or some chemical. Glacial acetic acid. So now, but if we poke around into the machlokes a little further, we're going to find out that there's good reason to think that even the Ramah would be mekel in our case. Okay, and that is because, okay, I really could be. Anybody who needs to leave, please leave. Okay, is that like this?
So that means because it's bottom of the minute.
Because it's bottom. Why do you say it's bottom in b'mina?
It's not going to be assuming that this way
if you mix it into
right.
into mimina, that's a possibility. Well, I'll pass by that in a minute. Okay.
Is it royal achilas?
Is it the version that we're getting is in a food item. We're using it as a food item. After many steps, it becomes. And eventually, when we're going to get to it, it's going to be something that's edible.
It's not just a chemical that enhances something.
It's a chemical that makes something taste good. Okay, so the shayla is like this. Okay, how could Rama? A bunch of achronim asked the following kasha. How could Rama say that Nishtaneh is asur? We have two gemaras that say that Nishtaneh is mutter. Okay, the first gemara is the gemara says basis treifa. Okay, if a chicken who's a treifa lays an egg, that egg is not kosher. You can't eat it. Okay, if that egg hatches into a chick, you're allowed to eat the chick. Okay, basis treifa, the egg that's a chick that's born from an egg that was laid by a treifa, you're allowed to eat it. Okay, got that? Okay, why are you allowed to do that? So the Gemara says Amos gadla l'chi misracha l'chi isracha afar b'amol. Okay, it changed over. It's no longer an egg. Now it turned into a chick. So it's mutter. So they ask. Okay, so you see that if something was changed, it went from being an egg into being a chick. It's mutter. So that it's a kasha on the Rama who says that Nishtaneh is not mutter. Okay, so this is not a great kasha because this is a case of a okay. I'm going to skip it. It's a case of a yotze. Yotze min atame has a very different din. That yotze min atame is only asur. Okay, skip that. Well, let's go to the next case. We're way too short on time. I really feel bad. I'm sorry. I usually keep to half an hour. There's no way it's going to happen. Okay.
What to do, or
What did you say? Okay, I could, but I could stop here. But then you heard nothing. Then you just never heard me talk about it.
it's a great shiloh.
Right? You poor guys. Okay, no, I'll keep on going. Okay. The bigger question is, the Gemara says you're allowed to buy honey from Goyim, and the Gemara says even though there's a possibility that they put in non-kosher meat into it, they dunk meat into it, the meat would dissolve and turn into looking like honey. Okay, so the Gemara says it's okay, you can buy it anyhow. And the Gemara says the reason you want to buy it anyhow is because it's misrasari. Okay, this is an ambiguous term. It's misrasari. So the Ran says two pshatim. What that means is the second is that since the it's just like an egg made from a treifa. It was one thing. It was originally a piece of meat. Now it's honey. So meat that turned into honey is mutter. Now it's honey. It used to be meat. Now it's honey. So honey is mutter. So if so, why don't we say the same thing from the musk? It used to be blood. When it was blood, it was usher. Now it's something else. It should become mutter. There's a kasha on the Rama. How could he say that Nishtaneh is usher by musk when we see here by the Gemara that the meat turning into honey is mutter? Okay? He's looking at me funny. Got it? Okay. So there's four explanations as to why the Rama holds. Again, the Rama is the one who says that musk is usher, that Nishtaneh is usher. The Rama is the one who would tell us that this is going to be usher, because animal fat turning into petroleum is obviously Nishtaneh. Okay, so if we're going to find four explanations for why the Rama holds cases where the Rama agrees to the Gemara, because the Gemara will have to agree that Nishtaneh is mutter in certain cases, and those cases are going to match to our case. We're going to find out that they're the same as our case.
So why is that called Nishtaneh? Why is it anytime you take something and change what it looks like, it's called Nishtaneh?
No, you didn't change what it looked like. We didn't put sprinkles on top of this thing. we took animal fat and we turned it into petroleum. Okay,
that's scientifically, molecularly, what?
Everything about it. It's a whole new thing. It's brand new. Blood turned into musk.
You broke it down. Now it's always there.
No, it was not. Right. So I didn't give you all the gory details, but no, it's not at all. I mean, chemically, of course, it's not the same, but not chemically. Look at the things that you have in front of you. I had blood. It turned into musk. That's a pretty dramatic change, right? One thing turned into this very other dramatic change. I had animal fat, and I turned that into diesel fuel. They have nothing. I mean, they're both liquid, but actually no. The animal fat is a solid, but they have nothing to do with each other. They're two totally different things. It's very dramatically changed from one to the other. They don't taste the same. They don't look the same. Nothing about them is the same. It's a whole new thing. Although the Nishtaneh part was the easy part to understand that this is dramatic. Sometimes people apply kulas of Nishtaneh to things that is not so clear. They take corn syrup and they turn it into artificial sweeteners. They come on, it's similar enough. This is sweet and this is sweet. Basically, we have the same thing. That those are fuzzy if those are considered Nishtaneh. But we make a dramatic. To me, the dramatic part is clear. To me, that was. To me, it was okay.
So how do you measure it?
There gotta be some.
What's the formula?
You're right.
Objective.
The answer is I don't know what the answer is, but sometimes it's very obvious. To me, this is a case where it's very obvious. So other
I don't
cases,
know where the line is, but this is on the other side of the line.
that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. No, I'm saying there are cases that people apply to that I'm not convinced that it's correct. But this is to me. Okay, so the.
So we don't know how it got from blood to musk. We just don't know.
Correct.
So the Eberstein did that. Obviously, nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the only example of Nishtaneh. How do we apply it for what's?
No, other way around. The Ramas is machmir in that case. So he said, so he's going to be mach. We at the surface he should be machmir in our case also.
Mekel though, you'd have to say it's called Nishtaneh.
I have to say, no. The machlokes is it Nishtaneh or not? It does make a difference that it was Nishtaneh.
So to apply it over here, you'd have to say it's the Mekel over there. When we make clear, who says? I mean, how do we know what's the
gelatin?
So I'm saying to you is that we have a Gemara that two Gemaras that tell us that there are things that changed that became mutter. So if I tell you how the Rama explains that Gemara, that'll tell you there are cases that he agrees that you could. The Gemara says there are cases that you could be mekel. So if I can make my case like that, then it's going to be mutter. Okay? I'm going to tell you four explanations for why cases that the Rama is going to make on. Okay. The first comes from Rabban Kala. He's actually talking about gelatin. He's not talking about mei'achilah per se, of course. I mean, anything close to mei'achilah. He's talking about gelatin, and he says, when something is Nishtaneh, When something is Nishtaneh, it automatically changes from being Isser to being Yotzei Min Asr. Okay? Ramban says it's no longer the Isser itself. Everyone agrees it's not the Isser itself. Because it's Nishtaneh, it's not the original Isser. But it's a Yotzei, it's something that came from the Isser that was there. He says, okay, so when Yotzei Min Asr is also Asr. So if I have blood, which is Asr, and the Yotzei from that blood is musk, so Yotzei Min Asr is also Asr. Okay, so that's why musk is also Asr. But if there's a special din by Yotzei, which I skipped before, which was something that's Yotzei Min Tameh, which is become not edible, that item is no longer Asr. Yotzei Min Asr means is that I had Isser, and then I have Yotzei from the Isser. When it becomes not edible, it's cut off from the Isser. There's examples of that. It cut off from the original Isser, and therefore, an Isser itself that gets inedible temporarily stays Asr. But inedible Isser that becomes a Yotzei Min Asr that becomes inedible is mutter. Okay, so even after it becomes back edible again. So Rabbi Aaron's case is he's talking about gelatin. He says it's not true by gelatin because the gelatin comes back to being what it was originally. He says so it's not a yotzei. It didn't change anything. It was gelatin. It's temporarily inedible, but it goes back to being edible at the end. It goes back to being edible over there. So it's the same isra it was. So being nisrach in the middle doesn't make a difference. But if it would be a yotzei, if it was Nishtaneh and it became a yotzei, then it would be mutter. Okay. So in our case,
Yes, the meat and the honey.
So the meat in the honey was Nishtaneh.
Then we came back.
What? And it didn't come back. It became something. It's only possibly as a yotzei. The Gemara said, and it was nisrach in the middle there. The Gemara assumes. The Gemara only says the word misra. Sorry, it only mentions the nisrach part of it. You're supposed to understand, and it was also Nishtaneh turned into a yotzei, and therefore it became mutter. Okay, so our case is close enough to the honey that it should be mutter. Okay, that's one. The next answer. Pri Megadim says like this. Has to do with what you said beforehand. Like this. The meat, when the meat is put into the honey, it actually when it turns into honey, it's not mutter. It actually stays asr. It's still meat which is asr. He says, but it's meat now in a honey form. Meat in a honey form is min b'minoi with the honey that's in a honey form. Okay, we have meat that looks like honey, and we have honey that looks like honey. So those are min b'minoi. Mid deraisa, min b'minoi is bata b'raiv. So it would be mutter. The meat that's in there would be bata b'raiv, and it would be mutter. Usually midrabanan we say that even min b'minoi needs shishim. Okay, but over here, since it was nisrach in the middle, since it became not edible at some point in the middle, even though that's not going to last, it's eventually going to turn into honey also. So Chacham said it's okay. You don't have to be makbid to do bittul b'shishim over here. They were soymach on bittul b'raiv over here. Okay, so in the case of the honey, the only case we're going to be making is by the honey case where it's min b'minoi and we say it's and it's going to be bittul b'raiv. But in the case of musk, it's not mixing to anything. Okay, it's by itself it's asur. When I put it into my food, when I put it into the food, it'll be mei'achilah because one is musk into potatoes. What do I put it into? So then it's going to be bittul b'shishim midaraisa. So then he's not going to be making those kind of cases. Okay, so according to that, the Bionaphtha when I create it, it will depend. If I make it by itself. If I have a factory that just takes animal fat and I make Bionaphtha out of it, then it'll be asr because it's not mixed into anything else. If I made it mixed with other stuff, if I made it mixed with other petroleum, if I did in the factory petroleum and animal fat, or if I mixed ethylene into other ethylene in the pipeline like that, then it'll be mutter. We'll get back to the same. As long as it's bata b'raiv, yeah. I don't know what the percentage are that we're anywhere near holding by that it should be not the rive and stuff, but yes. But according to if it would be not the rive, then we'd be up to 3. That's correct. Okay. Two more answers. Some surface says the only time the Gemara is meko to say that Nishtaneh is mutter is only by the case of honey, the meat in the honey, because what it turns into, what the end product is something that we know is heter. So he says, I'll explain to you, the Chok Yaakov explains like this. He says, Chokak doesn't say the Chasam Sofer, but he says the same shot. Okay, he says like this: when meat turns into honey, okay, I'll phrase it like this: the way the place can talk about it, should we go basar mei'achilah or basar hashta? Should we look at the blood as being mei'achilah, it was blood, or should we look at hashta, that it's musk, that it's not blood? So he says the only time we could go basar, the Ramah holds, the only time we can go basar hashta is when the hashta is something that we know is being a heter. So the hashta is honey we know is heter. We could potentially go basar hashta. The egg from the Beitz's treifa turned into a chicken. Chickens are kosher, so we could say, oh, it's basar hashta and it could be mutter. That's only true when we have a hashta that's something that's mutter. But what happens if it turns into something that we have no experience with? It turns into musk. So what do you say, basar hashta? The thing that it is now, it's heter? No, it doesn't have any. It's a new bria. It's something that we never encountered before. So how can we say it's like the new thing? The new thing is not in anything. That's what our shaila is on this new thing. We're forced to go basar mei'achilah and to keep with the original thing and say the last we knew about it was this thing was blood. So blood is usher. Okay, we can only do when the thing we're going to is a thing. There's something there. Okay?
Or this established heter.
Something that we know as heter, so we can say, okay, this thing became that thing, but if it just became generic something and something that we never saw beforehand, then we wouldn't be able to say it. Okay, so that means that the Ramah is going to be very specific to musk, or maybe there'll be other cases like that are very, very specific. It turned into something brand new that we never saw beforehand. But if it turns into something that we have experience with, then we're good. And of course, that's good for the Jews, because Naphtha we have experience with. Okay, we know what Naphtha is. It's made from petroleum and it's kosher. There's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't have any sensitivity to it. Okay, so that we'd be in good news for that.
No, I think it.
Because
Yeah, this is a chicken. Yeah,
It's a natural chicken.
That's a chicken.
Let's say before they discovered petroleum.
Right.
Before we discovered petroleum, what were they asking?
This is not petrol. This is the nuchafts.
It's right.
It remains a nuchafts.
that's
The
what you think.
Bionaphtha. It's a new mei'achilah.
No. Wait. So I'm not sure what you're saying. What you're saying is that petroleum itself is a new thing. It's because it's a.
No, this thing that they create is a new
It's a
thing.
new method of
It's a
making
new,
it.
it's something that's not petrol. It
It
looks like
imitates
it imitates it, right?
It's exact. No. Excuse me. When I take meat and I turn it into honey,
Honey existed.
It's became something that's basically a copy of honey. Me and you can't tell the difference with it, and the naphtha also. I can't tell the difference with everyone. To everyone else, it looks like honey. It looks like naphtha.
We know honey's mutter because the Gemara from
Yes,
so
we have
calls honey's mutter.
Yes.
We don't know petroleum's mutter from the Torah. We just know that it's sourced from this.
From heter.
It's sourced from heter because
So
petroleum is a
So
mineral.
you're saying
Mineral.
you're saying chicken. We have reason to it's kosher because the Torah says there's only this many treif birds, and therefore we can
We
deduce
know
that.
the Torah tells us chicken's kosher.
The Torah does
It's the
not.
same
The Torah does not say the chickens are
I can
kosher.
go make musk out of petroleum.
No, it does not. It says. Okay. So mitaychlav, you find out that petroleum is also kosher, right? It doesn't say that petroleum is treif. Petroleum is as good as
If I can
chicken.
make musk out of petroleum, would it change? Would this whole thing change? You lose the whole.
If you do it now, you say
I can figure out how to make musk out of petroleum. But now you say, oh, no, it's I had the way of making it, so now it's different. Now it's heter.
Okay, it's a fair question. It's very different here, but because for 100 years, literally for 100 years, people have been making naphtha out of petroleum. It's an established
200
thing.
years ago, before they make it, then Taki would say it's awesome. But now it's
It's a fair question. I'm not sure how to answer that question, but I don't hear the other side. It's making something that everybody knows is kosher, right? Everybody making into ethylene. So you say, okay, but ethylene doesn't exist as its own freestanding thing, right? You can't go to a store. It doesn't grow on a tree, you know? Okay, you could argue. Okay, last is now this to me was a surprise the way he says it. The Chazon Ish says that everyone agrees that something that's Nishtaneh by itself, the word by itself is not right. Naturally, without any intervention, it changes. Everyone agrees that Nishtaneh is usher. Okay, like our case of of blood becoming musk. Okay, the blood becomes musk. It just happens. You just poke into this gland and you find the musk in there. Or the Gemara says dam nechav nasa chalav. If not for a limud, we would say that milk would be treif because it comes from blood also. Okay, it just happens by itself. Wait, just give me a second.
It's a process. You took blood, it's not going to become milk in the body of the person.
It's a natural process that happens by itself without any intervention from it. And the other cases, the eggs become chickens. What?
What is he saying? Any deliberate?
Okay. As opposed to when the meat is in the honey, Meat never turns into honey by itself. It's only because somebody put it into the honey. Okay, now again, I would have never thought like this. The meat, you put it into the honey. Someone has to do something to make this process. Now, the process is natural. The process happens by itself. Nobody sits there and breaks the meat apart into little pieces, right? No one's doing that. But someone, it's something that needs a human to start off this thing going. That's the case. That's the case. Where everyone will be makel. Okay. Now, as far wise, I'm not sure I could understand so perfectly.
He said the opposite.
I originally said exactly the opposite. I exactly thought the opposite. So the Chazanish, but that means is for our case, our naphtha is way better than the honey. In the honey, the guy just dunks the meat in, and then everything else happens by itself. Here it's completely human driven. Okay, here there's lots and lots of processes that have to happen. So we're good news for the Chazanish.
So the same, if let's say they would be able to take the blood and deliberately make it in, use chemically make it into the mess.
Right. Correct. Yes, correct. That's what we're saying. Yes. Okay. So for all these, this is our one section of reasons. All these reasons to say is that there's machlokes whether Nishtaneh is mutter. Machlokes Nishtaneh is mutter. Usually we would be machmir when it's a shayla with the raisa. But here, we're saying that the Ramah himself has to agree that certain cases are going to be mutter. Based on Gemara, he has to make them certain cases. We have these different reasons. What's the reason why he would sometimes be makel? And those are completely or close to pointing to saying that the naphtha should be mutter also. Okay, that's one section. The next part is shorter. Is Rabbi Shechta said, I don't know if you remember, he was here a couple months ago. So anyhow, I talked about it then. Not with all these gory details. This was like a few minutes, but I spoke to him about it then, and he says, "Listen," he says, the Chavos Da'as says, we know that when something becomes inherently inedible, it spoils and rots and becomes inedible, the issur that was on it falls away permanently. It's for good. It can't come back. No matter what you do, the issur can't come back to it. He says over here it became inedible in the middle. So the fact that later down the road we could turn it into something edible doesn't make a difference. As long as when there's a stage that is completely inedible, then the issur is gone. Excuse me, and it's gone forever. Now he said, listen, I know there are others who disagree with the Chavos Da'as, who say no, issur can come back. So he said, first of all, he says, I think,
and we're machmir like them. Right?
He said, no, gelatin is different. Gelatin is different because it's coming back to itself. Okay, it was a temporary kind of a thing. But I'm going to get to gelatin. Give me a second if I have time. He said, first of all, he says, I think the din is like the Chavos Da'as. So you said, but he says, I think the din is like that. He says, also, even those who don't agree with the Chavos Da'as agree if it's Nifsal mei'achilah kelev, it's a whole stage past it. The Chavos Da'as talking about when it's just Nifsal mei'achilah. He says, this stuff, Nifsal mei'achilah kelev, it turns into gasoline. That's for sure. He says, and Rav Aaron, and I mentioned before, Rav Aaron, who doesn't agree with the Chavos Da'as. He says, no, I don't agree with the Chavos Da'as overall. He says, but if it turns into something else, if the issur becomes something else, then he's willing to be makel. The Rav Aaron himself says he'd be makel. As long as it turns into something else, then he'd be makel, which is what it does. It turns into something else. It doesn't come back to itself. Okay, now, then there's just a side question, which is just for your, I thought it was interesting, I'll tell it to you, not so relevant. And the question was, okay, let's say it's mutter because it's not roy l'achila. Well, there's a catch. Things that are not roy l'achila are only mutter midraisa. Midrabanan, if you eat something that's not roy l'achila, it's also because of achshaveh. Achshaveh means is that by my eating it means that I show that I consider it edible. Okay, what else am I eating it? If I ate it, that means I must consider it edible. So that's what the Rabbanan think is svara. So midrabanan, things that nifsal mei'achilah are only mutter. Let's say there's no issur b'yirah, there's no issur hana on it, but you can't eat them because by eating it, you're showing that you do consider it edible. So the question
is, eating it in the not royal achila stage.
Oh, so that's what he said. He says that only works. That logic only works if you eat it while it's still not royal achila. Then you could say, okay, actually, I showed that I consider it royal achila. But when I eat the thing after it's turned into something, they did so many more steps to it that now it became royal achila. He says that doesn't make a difference. Okay. Anyhow, so I missed something about what you said before. I'm skipping that because we're way over time. I just tell you, Rabbi Rees, when I spoke to him about this, he was most convinced by Rav Shechta's, what I told you last now, about it just becoming not royal achila in the middle. The other things he held was sneifim. And he also said, this is very different than making gelatin out of bones or making artificial meat out of stem cells, because there, the end result is what you started with. You started with an issur, and by the end of the process, you end up back with the exact same thing that you wanted. You had bones, you ended with gelatin, which is part of the bones. The fact that it became inedible in the middle, we could look at it and say, come on, Lamai says I started with a bone and I ended with a bone, so it's still usher. Or with the artificial meat made from a stem cell, I started with a stem cell from a piece of meat. In the end of the day, I have another piece of meat. So it's easier to see a connection and ignore the fact that it was inedible in the middle. So, but over here, I start with one thing and I never come back to the thing. I end up something different. It's just at a certain point, you have a feel that at a certain point you lose connection to that original thing.